This is the oral history of Neil Hancock, recorded on September 5, 2018, at Neil's place in Perth, Australia. I'm Gunter Steinbach, and I'm in Palo Alto, California, in the United States, to Neil over the phone. Welcome, Neil, and thank you very much for agreeing to this interview for the Computer History Museum.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Sure. I contacted you because you were the first to mount a touchpad, or rather a touch mouse, in a laptop computer. But this interview is not just about that. We want to record your complete oral history up to now. So let's start with the background. Where did you grow up? A little bit about your family, maybe childhood hobbies.
Okay. Well, I'm about, I think, 7th or 8th generation Australian. I live in Perth, Western Australia, which is the most isolated city in the world. And we're on the west coast of Australia. And I was born in a place called Mount Lawley. And I'm now residing in a place called Mount Claremont. And I have two parents, they're still alive. And I have a sister who has 3 children, and she's happily married. And my youth was spent in mixed areas. I very much, my family's very musical, so I do have a lot of interest in music. I play drums, piano, and guitar. But through watching endless amounts of reruns of American TV growing up, I got very interested in technology and science. And that sort of led me slowly but surely into the direction the business I'm in now. I think when I was in probably grade 6 or 7, I got involved in CB radio. So I got most interested in radio communications and talking around the world as well. And again, that stimulated my interest in this area.
Okay, so that's how you went. That's how you drifted into engineering and computers.
Correct. Always had an interest in electronics as well.
An engineering degree.
No, actually, I started my engineering degree. I ended up getting into a computer and science course purely because the business had already started, and I was actually being pulled in another direction to actually start this engineering business. Really, is what it was. But I have ended up with a master's in leadership and management. Okay. Which, since you now have your own business, came in handy, huh? It certainly did, but I got that later on in the process as well. There's quite a story behind that too.
Well, do you want to talk about it?
Okay. Well, let me see. We will talk about the business later, but there was a point in time where there was basically a recognition of the top 40 businesses for people who are under 40 in Western Australia. And I was one of the winners, and that was terrific. And one of the local universities contacted me and said, there's no opportunity to complete a master's in leadership and management. Would I be interested? And I was. So that's what finished it all. So that was a terrific departure from just running a business, which has been an interesting experience, to say the least. We are now 35 years old. Not me. I'm 55. Okay, so that sounds great. That the university comes to you and asks, "Wouldn't you want to work with us?" Yeah, I'm very proud. It's an exciting field, the IT industry, and you're learning constantly. And specialising in portable computers is what's kept us ahead of the curve, and that was always my interest. But we'll discuss that in a moment because I'm aware of the questions that are coming. Yeah, I was getting to that, namely that I read in some of your things you sent me
that you developed software for the Sharp handheld computers. Did you actually write for the PC 1211, I believe it was called? I had one of those in the early 80s.
Oh, well, I actually I have a PC 1211 right here. But that's actually not the machine.
Great.
That's not the machine that I was actually writing for. The story about that is quite interesting, because this is actually what led me into this whole area. When I started engineering, all my colleagues were using Hewlett-Packard calculators. The HP 41 comes to mind. And something within me doesn't like to conform. So I looked around for anything that was not the HP 41, and I stumbled upon Sharp, who was developing the successor to the 1211, which was the PC 1500, which is to this day, I think, the most successful pocket computer in history. And the PC 1500 was just amazing. It turned out to be 50 times more powerful than anything else on the market. But I noticed that it was missing some critical engineering mathematics software. And a colleague and a friend of mine, and I decided to start a small business called H&M Software, and we developed some basic engineering maths packages for the PC 1500. From that, we became noticed by the Sharp Corporation, who then turned around to me and said, we'd like you to produce this for all of our pocket computers. There was actually a competition running, and that's what got our attention. They thought I would have been, it was about 40 years of age, but I was about 19 at the time. So they were a bit shocked, but there's quite a story behind that too. They actually took me around Australia, and I gave a speaking tour around Australia talking about pocket computers. And even a trip to Japan, where I went and met the factory. I was in the factory where I met the designers of the pocket computers. And through that, I realised the breadth of the tentacles, really, of how far the pocket computer industry went. Germany was huge. The US, of course. There was a pocket computer newsletter, and it just opened my eyes to the scope and scale of the computer industry that I was just knocking on the door of. And as a young student who was just trying to make a little bit of money from the bookshop, it was very, very interesting. And about this time, when Sharp sort of said, listen, you should really look at doing this seriously, I said, well, it would be nice to be able to sell a few pocket computers to some of my friends and colleagues at the university. Now, they said, no problems, we'll give you a dealership. Now, I had no idea what that actually meant. But it turned out to be fairly serious. And that's where Portacom started. And it was Portacom that was the name of the business that we began back in 1983. And that was a creation of myself. I had a bit of a falling out with the previous business partner. And this was a sole direction that I was going in. And we actually developed... When we spoke to Sharp, they said, listen, it's nice to have the software, but we need you to actually produce a package that we can market both here in Australia and around the world. And that was a bit of a shock, because I just thought you just wrote the code and handed it over and someone else would do the job. And it turned out that then there was documentation, and there was boxes, and there was packaging, and there was duplication of cassette tapes, of all things, because that's how the code was transferred at in that time. I've actually got an example of one of the products here. This is called the Advanced Mathematics Package, and I'm just holding this up so you can see. And inside here was a book, cassette tape, and basically everything from matrices to what else do we have here? Base conversions, factorials, hyperbolics, complex numbers. We had interpolation, that type of thing, finding real roots of f at x. So there was a lot of interesting things that was useful here. About that time, I also developed an RPN simulator for another pocket computer from Sharp, and that was also marketed actually in the US through a company that was specializing in Hewlett-Packard calculators back then, called EduCalc. So if you look carefully through one of the EduCalc catalogs, you'll see a a Sharp pocket computer and an RPN simulator, which was actually my design.
So you were when you started that dealership and business, you were 19, you said?
Yes, 19 or 20. Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
Well, honestly, it was just an exciting thought that I could even play in this area, but it was something no one else was doing around me, and I thought portable computers were certainly a future direction that the world would move in. But in '83, that was quite a decision to make.
Yes. Yes. How did was there financing involved? Did you have to get money to start it, or was it just you sitting at home?
Well, at the early stages, I was operating out of my parents' garage. My parents were very supportive. That's one of the wonderful things about my parents. But financially, no, I had to do it on my own. The money I'd made from the maths packs certainly helped. But I think my very first office that I could afford didn't have an air conditioner and was $80 a week. So it was very humble beginnings. And I think every second phone call was my mother. So we had just begun, and I was really green and very naive to the world of business. But it sounded like a lot of fun, so I started to move into that area. What then happened is there was a few people in the Sharp Corporation who started to mentor me, and I started to learn a great deal about the industry I was moving into. And they were benefiting from the interest, and I had quite a drive, quite a passion at that stage to understand and promote and support computing at the portable level. That was my main focus, because it all started from handhelds, and where we are today, where handhelds are just about ruling the world, it's fascinating the full circle we've come in.
Right. Right. So did Sharp have a local place in Perth, or did you have to travel to see them, or was it just done all over the phone?
Well, initially, I mean, they did have a Perth office, and they had offices in every state of Australia. But Sharp and Toshiba were the pioneers in the portable computer laptop/notebook world. Sharp was very strong in LCD technology, still are, and Toshiba and Sharp were fighting each other for many years, and that's quite an interesting thing to mention right now, because only just recently the Sharp Corporation just purchased the Toshiba PC division, so somebody inside Sharp's got a long memory.
Okay. All right. So obviously you didn't have employees at the start. When did you start hiring people?
My girlfriend at the time actually helped me immensely, and it was really just I think having an office is what made me realize that I had to do something. And one of the first lessons in business I learnt is that if you actually put yourself out there, people will start to notice that you exist. It was really just through sheer determination that I persevered through the first 6 months, and then it was a year. But bit by bit we started to make our mark, because we were the only people that knew anything about portable computers in Perth, that was. And we became, over the years, we actually became the largest supplier of portable computers from Sharp, and then NEC, and then other companies as well. because of our focus. We really sort of understood the technology, we could promote it well, but the critical thing with computing is you need to know how to support and service them, because things go wrong constantly, certainly in the early days. And we were very focused in that area. And bit by bit we grew. But the really interesting thing, and the main reason for our call, was I think about 2 or 3 years into the business, I'd heard that in America there was a giant computer show called COMDEX, and I thought I really should go there. So whatever money I had left, I bought myself a ticket to fly to Las Vegas and have a look around, and did that in 89 or 90, and it was in 1990 that I started seeing things that potentially led to the invention of the touchpad device, or the touch mouse.
Okay. So this was well. So there were mice, of course, at that time. And did you hate having to reach away from the keyboard, or how did it occur to you that this should be done on the portable computer itself with touch or with some other way? But how did that occur to you?
Well, what happened was that we had been dealing with all the major manufacturers of portable computers, and they were all, since the invention of Windows and preceded by GEM, actually, for those who remember that, there were attempts to create some form of attachable mouse device. There were devices that clipped on the side, there were the balls around the screen. I know Compaq did that. There was AST, had a lovely device that clipped to the front, but they were all attempts to introduce some form of mouse device to a portable computer. Now, when I was at COMDEX in 1990, I saw a display from Microtouch, and they were putting together touch screens on CRT monitors, and you could touch it and move your finger around, and it was magical that it actually would work, and it could emulate a mouse. And I thought, that's fascinating. I'm sure one day that's going to appear in a portable computer. And that's pretty well how my mind was thinking. But what happened was that around about the same time, Sharp released a product called the PC6220, and that was at that stage the world's thinnest notebook computer. And interestingly enough, at that stage, one of the main options for computers, or portable computers, were modems. They were all, you'd buy a modem device, such as this, and it would plug in to your portable computer. You'd pay a few $100s for that, and away you go. The 6220 from Sharp was a little different in that it was so thin, the place that you actually placed the modem was on top of the keyboard under a removable flap. And I started to think, well, that's a modem, so that'll have all the communications points of the notebook. I wonder if someone could take a touch technology, remodel the plastics, of course, on the notebook, and actually slot it into the machine. I thought, I'm sure someone else has thought of that, but I called Microtouch anyway, and I said, has this ever dawned on anybody to do? And they said to me, look, it's a great in theory, but no one's prepared to design a new notebook computer around a hypothetical mouse device in case it would ever work. And I said, well, look, I think I found a way to retrofit one into a current commercially internationally available product. And that was like, has anyone thought of this? And they said, no. Would you do the electronics? And I said, absolutely. I mean, I think this is a marketable, sellable international product. So, and I was all of 21 at this time, so this was very exciting for me. So we went ahead and through Portacom, the business, we actually designed the circuit board, which is an example here, but this is populated in some of the pictures I've shown you, but that's what it was. Just to give you an idea, that's the original flap on the machine. This is the patented device that would go over the circuit board and over the touch sensor. The touch sensor, an example, is here. This was a capacitive device, not resistive. And that's a big deal because all the modern day phones now use capacitive touch panels, and this was ahead of its time.
Right.
I also have in my hands one of the first machines which actually has the TouchMate, which is what I thought that was a great name for being Australian, fitted in there. And it's the first time that a product like this had appeared, a commercial product that showed the potential of having a touch device inside a portable computer. It wasn't in the greatest position above the keyboard, but that's the best we could do considering it was actually a modem slot in the original place. Interestingly enough, it wasn't just Sharp that ended up with that hole in exactly the right place, but Texas Instruments and Sharp got together and started developing a series of notebooks, and the entire top chassis was exactly the same as what I've just shown you. So there was a range of Texas Instruments devices that all would take the touchpad as well. So at COMDEX in '91, when we actually had these products on display, I had everyone going, "Eureka, that's it. That's exactly the way it's got to be." It worked very well. I had people shaking my hands from one side of the aisle to the other. We had actually launched the product back, I think, in May at Computer '91, which was a Western Australian computer show, and people were congratulating me left, right, and centre. No money was flowing, but they were saying that you've hit on the right idea. So, but taking it to America and showing it off there was really gave everybody the, as they say, the eureka effect. It could be done. It worked well, and there were many people sitting in the background ready to come up with a product when people wanted to have a laptop with a touchpad in the machine. And today, almost 99% of all portable computers are now using some form of touchpad or touchscreen in their system. We actually developed prototypes for Acer, Texas Instruments, and of course Sharp. But as time went by, it became very obvious that to pursue manufacturing in Australia was just well beyond my age, and certainly we didn't have a Silicon Valley in Australia. And pretty soon, as a few years went by, and we started to see people like Apple release products with touchpads. Dell was actually going to have exactly our device in their machines, and then they decided to take their manufacturing overseas, and they chose a resistive type of touchpad in their computers. But bit by bit, it became obvious to me that I was a bit young and a bit naive to think that we could have actually been manufacturing this product in Australia. But we did sort of try, but I had to really choose between pursuing an endless dream of manufacturing that really couldn't happen inside Australia, or continuing my business, which was pulling me at both directions. So I felt satisfied that we'd made a difference and gave people the idea that a touchpad inside a portable computer would work.
Okay. Just going back, so the manufacturer of the touchpad was actually doing the electronics for you, right?
No, we did. I mean, the integrated circuits they provided, but we actually designed the electronics, the circuit board, the interface. That we did that all ourselves. Okay. Yeah. I mean that.
Okay. So the manufacturer just provided the driver chip.
Correct. Yes. And of course they had to design a specific size for the glass panel. Interestingly enough, that size that we have here was just basically what I could fit in this shape. But you'll find it's very interesting that that size is pretty well the size of everybody else's touchpads out there on the market. So it does make me wonder just what they base their designs on. But that was a very proud moment. Back in '91, when we had, I think, 3 prototypes on display at COMDEX, and that was on the Microtouch stand, and it certainly gave people the idea that this was the future direction that would work.
Were those 3 prototypes in different machines, different models?
I think they were. There was a Sharp, and I think there was 2 Texas Instruments machines, and
okay.
They certainly garnered a lot of attention at COMDEX at the time.
Very good, very good. How big was your company at the time? Was it still just you?
No, we'd got to about, I'd say, 5 or 6 people at this stage. We'd actually started a service division, but we were growing, and that was the problem. I had to chase a dream of manufacturing, which I really would like to have done, but it was just too young, and the finances were not there. So I slowly but surely built an IT business that initially specialised in portable computers. We've now branched into more managed services, but we still love the whole portable computer side of things. But our moniker of Portacom is that we became the biggest supplier of portable computers in Western Australia since 1983, and we're now 35 years old. We're a quality assured company, ISO 9001, and we're centrally located in Perth. We're quite well known. We've got a very good name in Western Australia, but because of the touchpad and because of our history at the time we've been involved, we predate Dell. We are that old. We've had a lot of tentacles in the manufacturers who've given us insights, and we've been able to provide a lot of feedback to help in product development as well over the years. So I felt pretty proud about doing that as well.
Yeah. So that's been 20 years now, right, that you've had your company?
35.
Oh, right. Time flies.
I know, it does, and I've left my run late, but you wanted to know a little bit about my personal life. About 10 years ago, I was on a cruise ship in Greece, and I met a lovely American lady who was travelling with her family from Pittsburgh, and we fell in love and we married, and I now have a 4-year-old daughter called Jeannie. So Kathleen lives in Perth, and the family's still in Pittsburgh, but we visit regularly, and it's been yes, that's the completion of my life. I now am a family man, and I now have many directions for my focus as well as just the business.
Yeah, that's what happens in life.
It's certainly been a change, a wonderful change.
Going back to Portacom one more time, are you still privately held, or did you go to the stock exchange?
No, we privately held. We've had people look at taking us larger many years ago, but you're probably aware when the GFC hit, that really did a number on most IT companies. In fact, a lot of companies just failed. If it wasn't for the fact that we stayed fairly profitable, in the early days, it would have killed us too. So we've been challenged for the last 10 years, but we're still fighting fit and moving forward.
Okay. And I read somewhere that you sell some products under your own brand. What kinds of things are those? And does it mean you are now running an R&D department?
Well, any time we see an opportunity to investigate a product, we do see what we can do. I still like to keep my fingers in the potential for R&D. We do help some security companies around Australia as well, with some access to our knowledge and technology. A lot of the products that we've had developed for us and that we've worked on are actually more peripheral products for portable computers. As a side issue, going back about 10 years, we were still producing RAM cards by hand, hand soldering for the pocket computers from Sharp, and we were shipping those devices around the world. So we still kept our finger in the pocket computer pie.
Okay. All right. I think we're getting to the present. Can you talk a little, well, give us an idea of how you balance work and private life?
Travel helped, studying helped, but the biggest shock to the system really was getting married and having a wonderful daughter. That's forced me to find some form of balance, but I think because I have an interest in music, I do exercise. I play squash, I ride my bike. I try to ride that as often as I can, but it's not easy. But I try to sort of regularly exercise as much as I can, and keep a healthy sense of humor as well. Seems to be critical for me as well. It's important to see the funny side of life, and that's one of the most important things to me, because it's still a game that we play, even in business, and it does get you down, and there are great times and there are sad times, but as long as you stay positive and look forward, anything is possible. So I'm pretty thrilled from that perspective. I'm actually quite amazed at when I was looking through the history of the company for this interview. We have actually kept, since day one, for 35 years, scrapbooks of all the major moments in this company. So there's a lot of history here if anyone wanted to have a look. But that's really just a surface look at what we've done. But thanks to this business, I've managed to marry an American and travel the world and learn a great deal about an amazing industry, which is the IT industry. And I felt that even for a very small amount, I'm a little small cog in this big wheel, this big engine. But I feel like I have made a small but important contribution to the portable computer industry. So I'm very proud of that.
Okay, and rightly so. All right. Thank you again very much for giving us this interview, and I wish you all the best for the future of your company.
Well, thank you very much, Gunter. It's been lovely talking to you, and I'm here if there's any other questions that you need. We have samples, prototypes, photos, magazine articles. Obviously, this product has been written up over the years many times, and there's a lot of history there as well. But thank you for your time.